Go. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Words with Dani. I'm not Dani. I'm Emily. Dani Katz is with me, and we liked what we did last time where we didn't do any pre-show, and just the pre-show is the show. So welcome to the pre-show show. Dani Katz, how you doing?
I'm great, Emily. How are you? Are you feeling better?
I'm on the I'm on the final little dregs of it. Like today's was like the best day. Like I had a decent night of sleep. I didn't wake up completely congested. I went back to the workout. I've been doing a little bit of walking and stuff while I didn't feel good, but I went back to like a real workout today. So when the real workout was done, I was like, oh, I might have to cancel. I feel sleepy. But after a few minutes, I felt better. Yeah, I've been doing it. Like, did I tell you about this hard new workout we're doing?
No.
Okay, so it's what you do. It's like a HIIT workout, so it's only 27 minutes. It's high intensity. And there's these vibrating plates that work your lymph system.
Oh, I know those plates.
Yeah, and you do the whole workout on there. And so, like, you're on this vibrating plate. You have some little weights or a ball or a band, and then they have those TRX straps. And so you're just, like, doing all of your stuff from there. But it's so hard. Right? Some classes are easier than others. But I don't know if the girl we went to today, she's always hard. But because we've been sick for 10 days, you know what I mean? It's just like, it was hard, dude. Yeah, but I like it that it's like, I like when it's hard.
Yeah, of course you do.
Well, that's the whole thing is after the stuff we had when we were kids, the kind of workouts we had, like if it's not hard, it doesn't feel like a workout. Like I don't count it as exercise if it doesn't feel hard to me.
I'm learning to make that shift. And that's the medicine. Like that's the yoga is like, wow, is half an hour of yoga enough? Is that okay? Have I earned my oxygen today?
Right? Yeah. I just there's something about, and this is what my dad always said about why he went with me with the gymnastics anyway, because he had to find something to do to wear me out. Otherwise I would never have shut up and I would never have slept.
Same.
Yeah. And so, but he said what he didn't realize is that he was just building up my stamina. He thought he was wearing me out, but all he did was build up my stamina by sending me to the gymnastics. Yeah. And so now it's just that thing that it's like really, if I don't get enough exercise, I feel icky in my skin. I feel, you know what I mean? Like I'm coming out of my skin, and I'm sure I'm annoying everybody else if I'm annoying myself. But I also just 100%. Want it to be hard. Yeah. You definitely are too. I know.
With as much fire as I have, I gotta be working out every day.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So, all right. So you had some story to tell me that we just decided we'd tell everybody.
Okay, so this is why I'm late. So I literally just bolted in the door, grabbed a keto cup, and signed on here. I'm late because I was out with my editor for this side gig, and I'm not going to name the site, but I'm writing these little rom-com podcast scripts, and they're super fun. So I just spent the past week working on one, and it was non-linear, and so the series is called, that I was working on, was all about travel. So this was about my Costa Rican boyfriend, Jamal, who was a Nicaraguan refugee who lived underneath a tree and had a banana leaf as his wallet. And it was like this unlikely romance between this backpacking Jap and this Nicaraguan refugee with this very thick patois Caribbean accent. Okay. So writing the script was I was really devoted to getting the accent right and getting the lingo right. And I spent the whole time with these multiple different patois dictionaries open on my computer and speaking the whole thing out loud. It took me forever. So we had this meeting today, and I was like, did I pull it off? He's like, we have some notes. And I thought the notes were going to be about it being nonlinear or some inconsistencies in character. And he was like, yeah, we can't run this at all because it's, wait for it, racially insensitive. And I literally, I burst out laughing, and he's so used to me being such a hothead because I thought it was going to be a real note about the quality of and the pressure of getting it right. And it was that, and it was just so fucking silly to me. So I grilled him on the ridiculousness of this. That's the whole point of this romance between someone, she takes issue with his mangling of pronouns. I'm going to have to mangle the pronouns to get the dialect right. I'm a fucking writer. What the fuck?
Yeah.
So we went through this one, and then I was like, all right, well, just moving forward, are there any other sort of SJW-ish issues that I should be aware of in the things I've already done. And he said, well, yes, one of the producers was offended that you wrote that the customer service representative was of Southeast Asian origin. And I was like, okay, this person literally never called customer service? Like, are we crazy? Anyway, so that's why I'm late, because I was being reprimanded for
your
this.
racism.
For my overt racism.
Right.
Thank you for your patience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had my own brush with racism this week that I'm going to save for maybe one day on a private on maybe a member side of a podcast we eventually do or something, because otherwise I might land myself in more shit than I'm prepared to be in at this point. So
I totally feel you. I did get caught. So the one other thing was that a journalist friend of mine, and last time I'm going to mention Facebook. It's a fucking dumpster fire, and there's no need to be on it.
Mm-hmm.
And someone posted about the triumph that some California bill was just passed to end natural hair discrimination.
What? What are you talking about? Natural hair? Well, now we can't have natural hair. We'll have to have wigs?
No. Natural hair is not allowed to be marginalized anymore. There can't be discrimination for having natural hair. And I posted something about wow, it's crazy the priorities of California legislators, that putting how much manpower and effort went into this, let's stop hair bullying, when we have 5G gone rampant, the homeless situation, XYZ, and then dogpile on me for being racially insensitive from my
So wait. So you cannot make fun of somebody's hair anymore?
Correct. Not if it's natural, apparently. Maybe if it's a perm or...
Oh, so if they got a weave or something like that, you can make fun of that.
I didn't actually read the article. I can't speak to this with any genuine authority or intelligence.
The only time I've ever made fun of somebody's hair is when men, have you ever seen when men who are graying or something, or they put dye on their facial hair and they end up looking like...
You know what? I don't know anyone it's so funny. A friend of mine made fun of a friend of ours for doing that, and it's if it makes him feel good, who cares?
Right, but it always ends up looking like they did it with a marker or something on the facial hair. It doesn't really work. It's pretty funny.
I must not be observant enough.
Yeah, I guess not. But yeah, that's okay. So we now have laws.
Okay, anyway, none of that was on the docket. That's just what I came in with.
Yeah. All right. So I've been sick and just barely hanging on, and my hair is really crazy because I just came from working out. So sorry about the hair today, guys. I'm just looking at myself and I'm like, wow, this is some great hair. So I've been a little lax on getting any stories or thoughts to Dani, but she's been emailing away this week. So yeah.
I don't even know what I've been talking about.
So I think we're going to talk about Greta Thunberg. I think we're going to talk about Lilly waves, and I think we're going to talk about Soros Weinstein trickery. Those were, right?
Oh, those were the things. Oh, and I also wanted to talk about the mortality codes.
The mortality codes, yes, you told me.
Time. All right, so where do you want to start?
Well, I think let's just start after. That's kind of where we start. After the last show, the first thing I think you sent me was the Greta Thunberg thing, and she sent me this very good article by Corey Morningstar called "The Raw." It's okay. Hold on. So I'll link to the story in the description box. But it was a story by Corey Morningstar. What was interesting to me was the date on this. It was a very long story. I didn't get a chance to read all of it. But a lot of the things that were in the story were things that were detailed in a video that was made a couple of months ago now by Henrik Palmgren from Red Ice, his video was deleted by YouTube.
That was deleted? That video was amazing.
It was amazing. So this is a more in-depth, this got into all the little nooks and crannies that you don't have time to get into in a 20-minute video. This is a very long, multi-part story. I'll leave the link, but the story was written almost a year ago. And most of us didn't really become too familiar with Greta Thunberg until the last 6 months. Or maybe even less, maybe even over the summer, really. So the last 5 years or whatever. So she was on top of it really before it became a thing. And this is a very well-researched article. This kind of, to me, is another version of what I talked about the other day with Robert in terms of death cults of the left, right? So like we talked about Medicare for All as a death cult, but I also see the green movement, the climate change movement, however you want to talk about it. I see that as a similar kind of death cult. And how
are you defining death cult?
Okay, are you familiar with who Yuri Bezmenov is?
Only in hearing you mention him.
Okay, so Yuri Bezmenov was a defector from the Soviet Union who'd been part of the KGB, who was tasked with, he worked in the division that was focused on infiltrating the United States through the education system and using basically a process of demoralization and to take over the United States, but not through a military takeover and not through an overt direct takeover, but basically to bring the United States to its knees by demoralization and infiltration. And the way they were going to do this was through the education system, the academics, the universities, and essentially the left. And he talks about, so this is what happened. So it's hilarious because all this nonsense about Russia collusion and like what they're talking about, there's nothing there. But there has been a Russian takeover. It's a Soviet, not Russian, a Soviet infiltration and takeover that started probably way back actually like in the 50s. This was so we had this stuff with the Frankfurt School that hurt our education system, but more in the, like, you can go read Charlotte Iserby and John Taylor Gatto. John Taylor Gatto focuses mostly on the Frankfurt School kind of takeover of our education system. Charlotte Iserby gets into how it connects to the communist takeover of it more in the 80s through the Reagan administration, when really the Department of Education started to change a lot. And it really started inserting a communist form of education. And in the 80s was when Yuri Bezmenov defected to the United States and started speaking out about what the Soviets were really doing. That's the Soviet collusion that's really being, the Soviet infiltration, whatever, the Russians taking over our country or the Soviets taking over our country is a real thing, but this isn't it. This is the red herring, right? Totally. And so one of the things he said is that the academic left, or the, wealthy elite liberal kind of stuff, not the super wealthy ones that are controlling things, but like the people who are like the professorial class, right? Like, the ones who live in suburbs around the cities where universities are that they teach at and stuff like that, that these people are going to be the useful idiots in this. Like they're going to be like their foot soldiers. And then when the infiltration is really complete, which I think we're arriving at that space now, like I would say that when we started seeing things about safe spaces and trigger warnings and stuff, the demoralization and infiltration campaign had been completed.
Did he use those phrases, safe spaces and trigger warnings?
No.
Okay.
Because this was back in the 80s. I'm sure he didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but he explained what would be really going on, and we're there. And so then what would start happening would be that the captors, the victors, would ultimately shoot the useful idiots in the head. And that's the way it used to be with the kind of war we had. We do warfare differently nowadays. And so now you have people fighting and begging for something that's going to be a reduction in quality of life, right? It ultimately is anti-human. And the way, it's not like your typical warfare. They're just going to take you outside and shoot you in the head, but they're going to get you to beg for your own demise, right? And so Medicare for all, Medicare is healthcare that's always been given. Robert and I talked about this. It's always been given to people who are in their senior years, right? It's basically the healthcare you get when you're on the later half of your life. It's end of life care, basically. Mm-hmm. Extended end of life care. So now you have people begging for extended end of life care from birth to death. The people who want Medicare for all, right?
And so is this what you mean by death cult? Death
cult. This is not pro-human. This is not, when I say pro-life, I don't mean in like the abortion sense, but that too, right? This is not like go humanity. This is not life extension. This is not better quality of life. This is not like progress of the kind we'd like to see, not progress like the left likes to use it. This is very much like, let's make ourselves little, let's make ourselves small. In fact, with the green or the climate change movement, there's people out there who talk about humans should be eradicated from the earth so that the animals and plants can have their home back. Right?
Well,
there's people that say that
like,
kind of shit.
Like the self-flagellating leftists
right.
who feel bad for whatever privilege crap
they have, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
whatever. So you don't see any of these cults really when cults pop up.
When you say cult, like, is there like a leader? Is there like a mission statement, or is it like a de facto cult that people are inadvertently initiated into by?
Well, both, because all of in that article you sent me is a perfect example of it. Really, all of this sprung out of Al Gore's bullshit. There's all these little movements that all tie back to Al Gore's thing that he started.
He was a scammer from the get-go.
Right, but now you have all these different organizations that, I mean, she names in the thing 8 or 10 or 12 other organizations.
She did a great job of linking all
that are all connected, and each one of these things likes to think of itself as separate. The people who are part of it, like the members, like the humans who are genuine in their concern and their actions, they're thinking that they're part of something that is grassroots. Meanwhile, it's being controlled by the same people that have done every other thing that ever has happened, that, you know, whatever. Right. So basically, like, it's both a defined cult and a de facto cult, because no matter which little segment of thing you join up, you're funneled into this system. Right?
So basically you're saying that the control matrix is a cult. Is that correct?
But instead of it used to be that, like, when the control matrix came for you, they took you out back and shot you.
Oh, now they just say that they're giving you free healthcare.
Now they get you to beg for the thing that is going to kill you.
Right. Like, we'll forgive your student loans and we'll also vaccinate you 30 times.
Or even just like we want substandard health care. We want a lower quality of life. And we're doing it in the name of saving the planet or in the name of helping the other people or whatever, right? And so they're getting...
It's not even lower quality of life. It's like, I'm not going to use straws anymore. Like, it's also
dumb.
But so dumb is the thing.
Right, it's dumb. I mean, it's mostly dumb, you know, but there are a few really significant things baked into that cake that nobody ever talks about.
Well, now they're kicking these corporations off of the New York Stock Exchange for not following these certain environmental standards.
Right. Right, they don't kick people off the stock exchange for violating laws and for stealing people's money, but they do it for violating the faux environmental standards.
Right. Yeah. So yes, why is Jack Dorsey hiding in Africa right now?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of that kind of stuff going on. People are doing weird stuff like that. But my point with this is so you have all of these little cults so there's this cult of personality that's built up around, like, Greta Thunberg, or there was one around sort of Al Gore before, where people will live and die by...
of the year, by the way, a bot child.
Right. You know, when you talk about Medicare for all, you associate that with someone like a Bernie Sanders and whatever, and they have figured out from all of their experimentation with these same people that are funding all these movements also funded Scientology, the Jonestown, what was the one, the Heaven's Gate cult. These are all things that had intelligence agency funding, just like all of these organizations do. And they figured out the kind of people that they need to lead these movements.
Oh, that's interesting. So then, well, that's helpful, because then that explains why people actually are not in control of their intellectual faculties anymore, because they're under the influence of
mind control.
Well, yeah, it always comes back to mind control, I guess.
Yeah, it always comes back to mind control, cult, religious program. Like, the climate change is a religion. Medicare for all is Jimmy Dore's religion, as Robert and I talked about the other day.
I'm not sure if you were able to see, because I know one of the emails that I sent you said you didn't see the comment, how the video that I'd posted where I just mentioned, it wasn't about climate change at all. It was about the label climate change denier.
Yeah.
And did you see that stapled to it was that Wikipedia definition of global warming?
That's what happens to anything. Anytime anybody mentions climate change, WikiLeaks, anything, every video that Russia Today ever puts out has a thing under it that says that they're funded by the Russian government. Yeah. It's all out. Anytime anybody makes anything about vaccines, there's one of those. Yeah, they're on top of that. So,
right.
Okay, so what is it? We've talked here about the Greta. This article is called "The Manufacturing of Greta Thunberg." I will link to it. It is very, very good. It details The main reason to read it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please, you offer the summary.
The main reason to read it is not even because of this, although it is informative about this, and that's a good reason to read it. What she's talking about is how everything works. So what everything you're looking at, the vaccine stuff, anytime they want to control the minds of the public, they deploy this kind of octopus, right? And they have a formula, a template that they use when they want to do revolutions, color revolutions in countries, when they want to do climate change stuff, whatever it is, they deploy this kind of octopus that is, NGOs basically. And they even talk about how now that people are catching on to the whole NGO thing, they're trying to push the NGOs underground through this Extinction Rebellion movement, which is the next layer of bullshit coming in the climate change thing.
At this point, and she did a great job at connecting those dots and explaining like where the money is and who's profiting off of all this. But at this point, and I'm sure you're the same, it was exactly the same with Harvey Weinstein. Like, I don't have to hear the words or the scandal or the fear or the
same template.
It's just the volume. It's just the volume and the hysteria and the oh my God, the sky is falling psychosis.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know we're on the same page with the Greta thing, but the way that it's poisoning this generation of children with this much fear is flat out child abuse. Like what it's doing to the collective nervous system and anxiety levels, it's so gross. This super hyper freaked out aspy child who has no sense of how the world works or what is going on, and everyone's taking their cues and putting her on magazine covers. I mean, it's so ass backwards.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I just anytime something that has always been a problem that no one cared about suddenly becomes an emergency, right? And it's we've had an environmental. I'm not a quote unquote climate change. The climate change is a dumb thing. We have an environmental issue. We have corporations that dump crap all over the place. We have people that are wasteful. And we have a ridiculous energy system. And there's people, I read an article today about how many patents are suppressed and secreted every year by the government, because if you create any sort of energy device that's more than 20% efficient, they'll lock it away and give it to intelligence agencies, but not let you produce anything. So, we have issues that could be handled by, people not being gross, by the corporations and whatnot being held to higher standards than the individual citizens, and by freeing the technologies that people have discovered to not have to be plugged into everything and use dirty energy. So I'm not in denial of the fact that we have environmental issues, that we have treated the earth we treat something we don't care about in a lot of ways. Not me personally necessarily, but humanity has done that. But the people who've done it the worst are the ones telling us that we have to, that we need to flog ourselves for, whatever, for driving a car. So, and of course we've had a huge problem with, the casting couch and gross sex stuff in Hollywood for a long time, but it's always been like that. And all of a sudden, because Alyssa Milano said so, it had to become an emergency. You know what I mean? It was just Alyssa Milano was
screaming all caps. Emergency, 24/7 news cycle for weeks and weeks and weeks, as though cast couches in Hollywood were novelty.
Hey, so Dani, you might think there's a little lag, and my thing keeps showing me that you have not a stable connection. I'm going to pause this for a second while we see if we can sort this out. Hold on. All right, guys, we tried to improve it a little bit. Hopefully it will be okay as long as you can hear us both. I'm sorry for any lags or funny video quality, but sometimes where Dani is, sometimes there isn't an amazing internet connection. Okay, so we were talking about when everything suddenly becomes an emergency. That is a problem, but it's always been a problem. Why is it suddenly an emergency when and what it really is when it's gotten to a space where it can't be completely, the issue can't be completely managed the way that they like it anymore. They get out ahead of it by admitting that there is a problem so that they can also write in as the savior. They pretend like they're the one to point out the problem so they can ride in the savior. And then instead of trying to manage it by keeping it secret, they try and manage it by being in charge of the movement against it, right? So, I mean, so
it also makes people easier to control. I'm sorry, I know the Wi-Fi is shitty, but it makes people easier to control, and it makes people fight that much harder for their noble causes because it's life and death, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the survival of the species. It's taken to such an extreme that it warrants these extreme emotions. And what I find interesting in all these conversations about like the patriarchy and women needing to take control and whatnot, is that it's hysteria that's driving the ship and that they're playing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like emotions gone awry and emotions bullying like sanity, reason, perspective, right? Like I've had so many people say to me, oh my God, it's never been this hot in LA, you know, for the past few summers. And I'm like, of course it has. Like I've lived
like when we were little, it was hotter.
Yeah, it was way, and the air quality was way worse. And
smog.
I agree with you. It's not to say, of course, we're disrespecting the planet, and we need to course correct. But the way that the story is being presented is fucked up.
Yeah,
and it's not true.
Yeah, the other, I have two things to say about what you just said. Your yes about this whole female hysteria, Alyssa Milano, Greta Thunberg thing. The one female who's out who never presents hysteria, they hate, and that's Tulsi Gabbard. She never presents hysteria. She's always completely calm, cool, collected, and they hate that. She's flawed. She's not perfect, and all that.
I'm gonna do 99% because I still think when it comes to Hillary and she gets name calling, she loses it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but
a little bit.
Yeah. And then
sorry. Go ahead.
No, finish what you're saying, and then I'm going to say my next
I was going to say, I finally watched Tulsi with Jocko and Joe, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Except when she talked about China, she clearly had no idea what she was talking about. And when he pushed her on Huawei, and it became more clear that she didn't know, he just gave her a pass, which is fine because I love that, like, she deserves a bone. And also, like, someone on the left needs to start talking about that situation in a way that indicates that they know what the fuck is going on.
So I'll say two things. I'll say that she's a flawed person. Like, you know, some of the things that have been dug up on her, like she may be that she got into stuff and she realized what was going on and she has the right to change and to move it in the right direction. So she's flawed. I still like her better than any of the rest of them, but not enough to ever vote for anybody here.
I'm totally pulling for her.
So that, and then also the issue is that because of the left has been so consumed with Russia that they've completely missed this China thing. And so it is true that the right understands more about the issue with China than the left does. And also there's a lot of players on the left and a few on the right who have been involved in profiting off of giving China these backdoors into all of this technology.
Oh, i.e. Adam Schiff? Yes,
right. The Adam Schiff, the Clintons, you know what I mean? Like the Hunter Biden, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. But I also think we would be wise, again, as a country, as a whole community, as they're pushing this ridiculous impeachment nonsense. Like, okay, well, what's going to happen in that situation if you pull them out? What are you going to do to save us from collapse/war? Like, it's so silly to me how much time and energy is being wasted talking about things that don't matter when something so relevant is happening now.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I just want to circle back really fast to the hysteria thing. So the latest edition of the hysteria movement is this thing that is called Extinction Rebellion, which is the most frantic, hysterical thing you can say. But it's also, this is how language works this way. This goes to what I was talking about. It's a death cult. It sounds in one way like, you know, we're going to rebel against our extinction, but they're literally saying extinction. So they're willing to die for their cause. Yeah. So it's super interesting. So that, and then as far as the ridiculous, I'm not going to get into all the impeachment here because it's been talked about ad nauseum how ridiculous it is. But I do want to say this. Okay. We were just watching a little bit of Tucker Carlson before I started, and literally, they were reporting on what happened in the behind the door, closed doors stuff today or in some of the hearings, and Jerry Nadler, who I talked about with Robert the other day, apparently said today that these problems can't be solved by elections, right? So they're basically saying they have to impeach to get rid of Donald Trump because they don't trust the American people to get rid of Donald Trump. So they're not using impeachment because there's an impeachable offense. They're using it because they are afraid to go up against him in the election. And then somebody else said, we'll just continue to impeach him and impeach him over and over again for different things until something works. Like, they're literally just saying that now. Like, we have to impeach because we can't win an election. We've always known that that's the reason, but now they're actually saying it.
Wow. I mean, it's like a Saturday Night Live sketch, and yet it's really happening.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah, so I just thought that was funny. Like, elections can't solve this problem. Okay. All right. All right, so we're done with the Greta Thunberg thing. I'll link to that article in here. And then, do you want to go? Do you want to go to the Lilly waves or the Soros-Weinstein trickery, or where do you want to
go? Let's do Lilly waves. My thing with the Lilly waves, and which I actually accidentally sent that link out.
Yeah. You're trying to mind control all your friends with the Lilly waves, right? Yeah.
Anyway, what I thought was interesting about it, of course, like, there is the conversation about how 5G will affect these Lilly waves, and that's interesting in and of itself. But that what I was pointing out to you was that they were first tested on the public in Los Angeles.
All right, so are you ready for this? Are you ready?
Yes.
I don't know if you did you hear me? It might have been in the Patrons hour, I don't know, but not a few months ago, Elisa E and I talked about the Lilly waves on here. All right, so I can tell that you don't know what I'm about to tell you. Right, so, okay. So, I'm going to link to the article about Lilly waves in the description box as well. Because one of the things, so there's a few interesting things about the Lilly waves, but I'm just going to give people like a brief, you guys can go look them up. They were a technology, brought to you by John C. Lilly, who also brought us the floating tanks and Flipper, the television show Flipper. And he was also in the Navy and did experiments with dolphins. I'll circle this all back around for you in just a second, Dani. Like I can in a way that now the article's taking a few minutes to open. My internet is going slow too. Okay, Lilly waves operate basically on the water in your body. It basically, here we go. It came up. I can read it to you. Okay, so the Lilly wave was found by John C. Lilly and is in most cases completely misunderstood as to its usage to affect the thoughts and behavior of humans. It is described as a biphasic electric pulse which stimulates the neurons of the brain to resonate at a certain frequency. Thus, the Lilly wave has the ability to control the brainwave patterns of the brain. There is, however, a far more advanced form and a largely unknown and suppressed purpose in the use of Lilly wave. The water molecules within the brain can be made to resonate at a desired frequency. This causes the electrons that comprise the brain's electrical voltages to also resonate at that frequency. Okay, so basically they're using the water that our bodies are made up to get us to do entrainment to other frequencies and waves, and they can use that to control your behavior and your thoughts and all that kind of stuff. Here's what was
the sugar thing.
So then you got it right. So listen to this, guys, and this goes to my stuff because from what I'll get to the whole thing, but it says it's not only the case that the brain's water molecules can be entrained, but it is also true of the blood sugar, which goes to my sugar is programmable matter. And I have an interesting new sort of thing I'm going to go down, this road I'm going to go down with it, and that's going to be on the metaphysics of sugar. But basically, John Lilly, so John C. Lilly was in the Navy, and he created the isolation tanks. He was doing all this work and experimentation on dolphins that led him to create the isolation tanks that we all know as float tanks that we go to relax, but that when we were little, we're used to mind control us. And he also created the television show Flipper, which was definitely part of my programming. And I know for myself and for Dani and several others out there in the MK Ultra world, we've had what's known as the Marineland experience, right? Where basically you get taken to, the aquatic center where they have these large animals in the off hours and have missing time and whatnot. So I find it interesting. So he created this technology that affects the water in the brain, and he also created these isolation tanks. And I would argue that they were using them in tandem, and they were using them as part of the underwater training, right? And the flipper as a symbol, it made it cool to us, like whatever little kids' minds do, right? Like they see someone on TV, they see, they want to be in the water. They want to be doing this kind of stuff. And they experimented with this mind control technology on dolphins first and then on people. But now that this 5G thing is coming on, I see where it's going with this. I'm going to link the article. We don't have time to go into all the descriptions of it. But I'm going to say this. Like the 5G thing, like I actually think there's chance for much advancement for us, for the people who are aware and in control of the body. This actually proves my point that by controlling your blood sugar, you can evade the 5G, some of the 5G and Lilly wave issues, right?
For sure. I mean, this was what I learned from living half a block away from the 5G pole in Beechwood was it was like, okay, now it's time for me to train myself to become impervious to this.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's no fucking around and there's no time because it was right there and I felt it immediately. And it's completely shifted the way that I meditate, that I set myself up in the morning. Like I do feel like I have a leg up on 5G from having lived that close to it. And I do think it's going to absolutely force us to accelerate our evolution and our like physiological, psychological, emotional sovereignty in the face of what's coming.
Well, the big thing is it's going to force us to learn how to control our own endocrine systems. And like I have this really cool book that I never got to finish because it landed on my lap in a busy time in my life about the glands and how that's actually the most important thing in your spiritual and emotional development, and the most important thing to keep you from being able to be manipulated is to be able to control the secretions of your various glands through.
So is that like thyroid?
Hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid, pineal, everything. Yeah.
Totally. I feel like every woman I know has been having thyroid stuff. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, that's what's going on. Like learning to come into a different relationship with regulating.
Yeah. So learning to master that's I think part of like the spiritual mastery that like yogis talk about. They didn't necessarily say that, but I think that's what it really is. And then controlling your blood sugar. And I'm just going to put a little bit out here is that actually like sugar is really key in mind control, and through this technology is part of it, because they can actually sugar can be treated like a time crystal, and you can throw off a temporary parallel reality for an event, for a function. And as soon as the sugar is out of the blood, the memory of that occurrence, that event, that reality dissipates with it. Almost disappears the way cotton candy, it's there and then it disintegrates and it's gone. And when it's gone, there's no evidence it was ever there.
And are you saying that this is happening through the Lilly waves, or this is just another
technique of mind control? Part of the way that they're like, so the way, like when, like in cartoons, there'd be like the universe that occurs in a little bubble, right? Like that. Like you can throw one of those off and perform certain actions and activities or run simulations or experiments in this temporary like time bubble that's created, and sugar is a catalyst for that creation is where I'm going with this next. And so part of the reason some of us have so much trouble remembering some of this is not just because we've been wiped through some kind of hypnosis, but because once the sugar that recorded those events, that occurrence is out of our body, then it's hard to put it all back. Like there's little residue of it left, but it's literally kind of like, destroying the file.
Okay, I want to chew on this. It's really interesting. It's so mind-bending, and you have your unique relationship to time.
And what's interesting is I had the download on this while I was in the shower in water the other day, right? So I was like,
always the water.
Always in the water, and I'm Cancer-y, so I'm very, I have my moon in Pisces, and I'm a Cancer. All my whole chart is in water and fire, right? So for me,
crazy that we are friends, but
oh, I can hardly stand you, Dani. So I'm just kidding. Hold on a second. My computer.
I'm waiting for you to bite your tongue.
Hold on one second. My computer charger is doing something funny, and I don't want to lose this. Let's see what's happening.
I'm gonna talk while you do that.
Okay.
Because we're recording.
Yes.
Do you think that it was part of there was some sort of deliberate tie-in that we were not allowed to have sugar in gymnastics?
Yeah, I think because so my dad didn't let me have sugar when I was little either, right? My computer is doing funky stuff, like it won't charge. I don't understand what's happening. All right, we're gonna have I
heard this is because the Schumann resonance has been spiking all week, and that's what's throwing our tech off.
My computer charging cord is all chewed up, so it may be that, but I may need a new cord. All right, so we may just have
less sexy theory.
We may have 10 minutes left. I'm not. It doesn't seem. The light won't come on, and I'm losing power here. Okay, so back to what we're talking about. So I do think that the restriction of sugar when we were kids was so that it would have a grander effect when it was introduced to the system, right? Like a system that's always got blood sugar going through it. Right. But if the sugar is there, if it's not there,
not be sensitized to it.
But also, if the sugar is the thing that holds the memories of it, you need to have it not there and then not there.
So do you think that was a deliberate part of what was going on in gymnastics, the withholding of sugar? I know he would give us sugar before our last event, when sugar was doled out, or am I overthinking it?
No, I mean, my father has there was almost no rules for us in my house when I was a kid, but there was one rule, and it was no sugar.
Yeah, we were no sugar also.
Yeah, so so we were no. It was no sugar, and so whenever I was in a place where I
was no sugar. Everyone else in my family had sugar. I was not allowed to have sugar.
Yeah, so yeah, pretty much Kara had a little more than I did, and whatnot, but yeah, it was a no sugar thing. So I do think that there is something to that. And I think that, so I'm going down this lane with this to try and understand these bubble universes or pocket universes or fractured realities that can be created in this space when your blood sugar when you have enough sugar in your blood that it can be affected by these Lilly waves, and it can actually spin off sort of simulated realities or even real realities that are just kind of test runs or things for whatnot, you know what I mean? All sorts of weird stuff. But I'm also wondering, and I'm sure that sugar is not the only element that this can be accomplished with. It's one that happens to be uniquely good for that, and also has the benefit of being bad for you, so you can do mass mind control on the public.
Well, and plus it's in everything.
It's in everything. But
it's what they give babies to numb the pain for circumcision. So every little boy child being born in that system is being activated with the sugar frequency that early on.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
which is attacked by Lilly waves, which is targeted.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But I'm also playing with the idea of, okay, so this is something that's being done. What can we do with this? I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but Raz Ben was just recently on Freeman, and they were talking about magnetics in relation to this 5G thing. And apparently he's using magnets and crystals together in orgonite to sort of defend against 5G and some interesting things. I really think there's a lot to look at here. So just like everything, that everything that can hurt us can also be a tool. You know what I mean? So we have to really shift our thinking on this from hysteria about 5G.
Yeah, and how to hack it and how to use it to our advantage.
We can surf on it. It's a big wave. Exactly. It's a big wave, and it can crush us, or we can surf on it. But we have to understand this. We have to understand Lilly waves. We have to understand the power of water for holding memory, the power of sugar for holding memory, and be really conscious of what we're doing when we have certain things going on in our bodies. I've been saying that that's really the answer for a long time. But I'm going to go down this kind of side road with sugar as part of my programmable matter thing. But thank you for I hadn't seen it put so succinctly about the blood sugar. That had just been something that I had been coming up with in my own ramblings.
Yeah.
But isn't it kind of funny? Wouldn't it be funny Like, maybe this is always the plan they had. You never know how this works. I was exposed to all this John Lilly style programming as a kid, and I'm here saying the thing about the sugar is programmable matter. Like, and maybe this memory of being programmed with sugar is stored in my body, and it's just revealing itself to me right now as I learn to take control of my endocrine system.
Well, it's kind of what I don't understand about like our path and whatever the MK was, is that like what you and I are doing now is so 1,000,000% opposite what we were allegedly being groomed for. But of course you would, because that's like your rebel nature to take this thing that was used inappropriately. Like, I think we can agree that sugar is being used inappropriately.
Yeah.
I mean, and also just to finish the statement, like what Lilly waves actually do is they target sugar crystals and create explosions that cause confusion and most importantly, apathy. And so when we see people, like, why aren't people upset? The Dems are saying straight out, we're using impeachment as an election strategy. And we're like, well, why aren't people reacting? Right. How much sugar are they ingesting every day? And we know that every show coming through Hulu is going to be using those Lilly waves. So anyone who's watching anything on Hulu, whether it's like some nature documentary, is being bombarded by these.
But Hulu was honest about that from the very beginning, because the very first ads for Hulu had what's his name, Alec Baldwin with the alien eating his brain and whatever, and he's like melting his brain. So they tell you this has not been a secret. I mean, this has been news for a bit. So so it is. I mean, I don't understand. This simulation we live in is very weird. Like, it's
so weird.
There's no doubt that it attempts to control the minds of everyone who's in it, but if you really pull back, sometimes you're controlling the whole simulation with your own mind.
Our perception of the simulation, I mean, we don't even know. Like, we're blinded by these senses and these little monkey minds. Who knows?
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah. All right, so guys, I'll link to those. We'd like to hear people. I know there's a lot of people out there in the audience that know a lot of things about Lilly waves. Like, one of my friends, Jim, who I haven't talked to in a long time, was always talking about Lilly waves and wanted me to do a show on that and about black particle tech. And I've managed to hit on some of these things over the years. But yeah.
But my point about the Lilly waves was that they were first tested in LA. So that was really my thing. Was like, do you have a take on, like, what is LA mind control central? What is
LA is a unique place. So first of all, I'd say yes, they were. My guess would be that they probably started experimenting with them in the late 60s and early 70s in all over Los Angeles, but in enclaves like Chatsworth and Van Nuys and places like this, or whatever, like little enclaves, obviously in probably coastal communities and things like that as well. It's a unique place. Right? We have an entertainment industry here. We have like the most interesting geography where you can be skiing and at the beach on the same day. Right? You have a vast network of underground tunnels and systems. You have a defense contracting industry here that is hidden amongst nature, that is in areas. It's not like they have some sprawling thing right in the middle of town that everyone knows is there. No, they hide on the other side of the mountain in Chatsworth. They hide on the other side of the mountain from Pasadena. I mean, I went on a walk with Sonia a couple months ago, and we're walking around JPL, and we're in the Hauhamunga watershed, right? And which is right in front of JPL, like near the Rose Bowl. And there was an ocean there, dude. We found a beach. It's obviously a watershed, so we know there'd be water. But this was, I've been to watersheds. Usually it's more like your river or lake kind of stuff. There was an ocean. There was fucking seashells there. There were seashells and pieces of seaweed, and it's right up against where Jet Propulsion Laboratory is. Right. It's like they're wanting to do that. It's very, I'm like, oh, okay, I found a beach in Pasadena. All right. You know what I mean? So there's a really unique, there's the underground tunnel system that they just exploited to quickly bring our subway system online, but it has been there for a really long time. There's been underground civilizations living there for a really long time. Elon Musk is now taking advantage of that. just bought up all of Bel Air. Apparently, somebody told me he bought up like half of Bel Air, and because that's where like Getty Center connects over to UCLA through the underground.
That's such a weird area of LA. That's like, it always feels weird, and there's it kind of there's nothing really there but its own weird insular little like meta communities.
Yeah.
Like it always just feels weird. Like Beverly Hills to Westwood is like some weird vortex of I don't really know what.
Well, UCLA is huge in mind control. Huge.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that's where my parents met, and you know what I mean. Like that's all, you know, and it's, you know, in my personal case, it gets stranger and stranger from there. But that, you know, I'm just one person. This is the part that I think is hilarious about this is that like I don't think I'm a unique story. Like I think that this has been done on quite a lot of people, but there's only a few people who like are figuring it out. Right. And so then we become so like, and they probably knew this was going to start to happen. So once you've discovered that you've been mind controlled, then you're like an MK or a survivor, an experiencer, and you're out here sharing your story. And they wanted to make the people who are doing that try and consider themselves like a special class of people. Like I'm a super soldier, or I'm a psychic spy, and I have all these gifts and all these talents, and I'm much more talented than the average person. It's not true. Like it's happening to, I'm not saying it's happening, I mean, on a certain level, mind control is happening to everybody, but like it's way more common than people think. Like, you know, UCLA is a huge school, right? It's like it's a huge school. So even if 10% of the students that go through UCLA are being run through some kind of program, knowingly or not, that's a huge number of people. And this is happening at universities all over the country and the world. So it is not a rare occurrence. What's rare is for someone to discover it and be open to like piecing the little bits together from their life and not being concerned with whether or not that's going to make them look crazy. So that's the only thing that makes someone like you or I or any other people who've come out and talked about this stuff unique. It's not that we're some special breed of humans that is more important than others. You know?
No, not at all.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, like they've really done a lot of damage to this community by putting people out there at the front of the community who do feel that way about themselves or who've been mind controlled into thinking that way about themselves. You know?
Well, I mean, isn't that I feel like that's with any community. It's like, it's all those people at the forefront who think they're the most, I mean, look at it in entheogens and who decides to talk about it. And like in any community, people think they're the most special. Like that's just part of human and having an ego. What I do want to get into before, and I don't know how long we're going to.
Few more minutes. Let's go one more round here.
Is that they're prepping us to reveal that everything we know about history on every level is wrong.
Yeah. Oh, my earphones distant. Hold on. Oop. All right. Sorry, my earphones fell out. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So yes, you were mentioning this to me today. Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, I've been noticing this for a while, but I was listening to Joe Rogan interview some author about some fabulous book that's winning it might have won a Pulitzer or something.
About the Comanche Indians.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how that completely changes our perspective about this particular tribe. And then I was paying attention to Robert Phoenix's Tartaria show. Tartaria? You watched that one? Mm-hmm. That was amazing. Mm-hmm. And then there was David Wilcock just came forth, and you were talking about how, like, with 5G, like, there's an upside to everything. So David Wilcock just came out and like, okay, so because we cut so much of the Amazon rainforest, now we're discovering this new civilization that's actually much, was here sooner than we had thought, and that shifts our idea of history.
So the fact that David Wilcock is doing it, because David Wilcock makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit. Like, you're right. He's the one who always comes in and rides the wave. When the decision has been made that we're going to sell this line of bullshit, David Wilcock is going to show up with his whistleblower and his story and whatever.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm wrong. I'm totally wrong. I'm talking about Graham Hancock. And
okay.
I'm sorry, because I'm just like, oh my God.
I was like, David Wilcock makes me throw up in my mouth. What are you talking about?
No, I get it. I'm so sorry. I'm talking about Graham
Hancock. Okay.
And this new civilization that he's discovered
Mm-hmm.
that's like way younger and completely shifts our idea of the history of North America and South America.
This is the big thing. I think this is what's happening. They know for sure, just like with everything else, that people are starting to ask questions because something seems a little funny here. So if we're not willing to commit to this story, they want us to commit to another story, right? It doesn't matter which one. They just want us to commit to another one. When the truth of the matter is this place that we live is a really weird junction of timelines. And it's not about, we were talking about this at Sonia's workshop the other day, and we talked about it in a Patreon group with Randy the other day. People have to get over where are you and start asking the question, when are you? Right? The coordinates are more about time than they are about space.
Okay.
Right? And so, like, I don't think that just because we're all here on Earth that we're all on the same timeline. And so we're seeing, because we have all these megaliths that look like they were built by a technology that we don't even understand, but people say they're old. Right? We have all this weird stuff, like, and we find things like, you know, the place that's now like the highest mountain in the world at one time used to be the bottom of the ocean. What? Right? Like, we need, like, we're not, this is a weird time thing. Right?
Interesting. I really like what you said, needing to ask about when we are, where.
Yeah. Time is non-linear and in some cases non-local. You know what I mean? And I don't think that everybody that is here is now.
Interesting.
Right?
Do you think everyone in your life is now?
Multiple. Like, I think that, like, like, I think that when we find ourselves, like, consistently, even though we feel like we've shifted into like a different reality or a different timeline for ourselves, but there are some of the same characters still there. Sometimes they're different, sometimes they're the same. I think we talked about this last time.
Their timeline?
Or sometimes it's just our connection to what we call love is a bond that sort of keeps us tight enough that, like, enough remains the same over these shifts and whatnot. But other times, like, you know, I don't.
But if that's the case, are you splitting timelines by way of love, or are you meeting on an
We're staying in
timeline?
sync. We're staying in sync well enough to get together. Right? Like, our timelines haven't diverted to the point, you know, sometimes we're on the same timeline with the same people. And other times we've shifted, but we can still sort of get together, like we talked about. I can still get together with lunch for lunch with my dad, even though we don't even exist in any kind of the same reality. I don't understand all the mechanics of this. Sometimes it feels really clear to me, but I look at it like multiple lanes on a highway. You can be on a freeway all going in the same direction, but in different lanes going at different speeds. And some of us have the ability, some people are really nervous about driving and they're always in the slow lane. And there's other people who, like, are always in a rush and they're always on the fast lane. And the rest of us move about between the lanes. And sometimes we change lanes and we don't even know why. We're not in a rush or whatever. We just get bored of being in one lane, so we go into another. And sometimes you're in one lane and someone is in the lane next to you, but you guys are traveling at the same speed for a long time. So your realities are parallel. Other times they're in the same lane as you. Sometimes you're in the same car, right? So I look at it, I think that's like the best example I can give it. I don't completely understand this, but as I try to understand it more, I just talk about it, and I could be wrong, and other people may have ideas that make more sense than mine. But
it really resonates. I do think you're on to something. And
so the Tartaria thing is interesting in that it gets people asking questions. But we have to be really careful, as with any of these things, not to jump from one false reality to another.
It's like walk away. It's like, okay, that's left is bad, right is good. So it's like, okay, so Western civilization, as we know it, is wrong. Tartaria is the right way.
Yeah, right. So
is what happened.
And it could be multiple things going on here. Like, it's just, who the fuck knows? Well, this is a very strange place.
Right. It's so weird here.
And a very strange time. And those, you know what I mean? And it's like, the reality is like, remember from when we were little, reversible jackets?
Yes.
Remember those?
Well, the pink ladies had reversible jackets in Greece.
Yeah, right? So reality is kind of like a reversible jacket. And so is space and time. It's like, if you flip it one way, the whole thing is based on space. If you flip it another way, it's based on time. Right? So,
maybe.
So space and time is the thing that's really being manipulated and played with here. And you know, you ever noticed how like there's some people that never leave the place that they're from, and then there's other people that are moving around all the time? What's that about?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and does their experience of time, do people who stay in the same place, do they experience time differently than people who move around a lot? Right? So like, yeah, so, but just think, so, I mean, it's like kaleidoscope. You know what I mean? Or it's like something that
it's
just
distorted from every different perspective.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, and I'm not going to dive into it, but one of the things that was on the list was talking about the mortality codes in language. So I'm curious, next time maybe we can explore that a little bit more, because I'm also realizing that comparative temporal naming in language is what activates the mortality codes.
Yeah.
Older, younger, longer, all of those are what activate the death codes and the mortality codes that don't necessarily have to be turned on. I'm feeling like they're more like epigenetics, like they can be. How they are.
Yeah, very good. All right, so we got to most of the stuff. We have a few things that, and maybe one or two other things that we didn't get to this time, but we'll get to in the next time. I'm tired. I need to kind of sign off here. So you can find Dani at DaniKatz.com.
Yeah, DaniKatz.com.
Yeah, you can find me at Off Planet Radio and on Facebook at Emily Moyer. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I think it was still a fun conversation, so I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.